Hello, everyone. My name is Preston Dennett, and welcome to a new episode of UFOs and the Paranormal. Got a very special episode for you today. I'm bringing back Dolly Safran. She's, of course, the subject of my book, Symmetry, A True UFO Adventure, which is all about her lifelong experiences with extraterrestrials. And this is part of a series of interviews I've done with her covering the book and other experiences that were not covered in the book. And today will be part 5. I'm calling this episode Interview with a Fully Conscious UFO Contactee, Part 5, Gathering the Children. And by this, I mean we're going to talk about onboard UFO experiences. I think this is the most extensive type of UFO encounter. This is where we really get the answers about the agenda behind ET contact. Don't really like that word agenda. The goal, perhaps, the reasons. And Dolly has a lot to say about this. This is one of the main reasons she decided to come forward, because the UFO contact experience is being badly misrepresented. There's a lot of fear surrounding this subject, which is not warranted. They're not here to hurt us. I've long ago come to that conclusion. And the onboard experience is just so darn fascinating. This is my favorite aspect of UFO encounters. And boy, does Dolly have a lot of them. And this is what we're going to be talking about. Gathering the children is what the ETs call it. So first, I'd like to welcome you, Dolly, back on the show. Thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm having fun. This is a good thing to do, and thank you for allowing me to do it.
My pleasure, an honor too. So this is exciting. I've got a list of questions, and I'd love to cover, some of the really poignant and more interesting and unusual experiences we described in the book. And of course, you're free to talk about whatever. I always learn something new when I interview you. Your experiences are so fascinating and really confirm a lot of what I've learned from other people. So let's just get started with the root of it. This is a controversial aspect of UFO encounters. I don't think it should be. It's clear that people have been are being taken on board. Invited on board is how many people put it. You won't use the term abduction. It's not accurate, and I agree with you on that. So this is my first question, because this comes up so often when I interview people. Is being taken on board a voluntary experience? Do people choose to work with the ETs and go on board, or are they, quote, I hate to use this term, but people keep telling me, kidnapped? Are they abducted against their will? So yeah, this is something I'd really like just to get some clarification on, and have you explain, as someone who is a fully conscious contactee, doesn't have fear, knows what's going on, and have had a lot of experiences with onboard encounters, not only yours, but seeing other people. So yeah, is this voluntary, or are people being kidnapped?
In every sense of the word, we are voluntarily going with them. There is a very expressed reason why it's complicated, and it's generational. ETs have worked with humanity since the beginning of our time and their time here. We've had 12,000 years this iteration, 12,000 before that, 12,000, 12,000, 12,000, for 280,000 years, or million years actually, on this planet, and then before that on another. You are genetically conscious of them, whether you realize it or not. Every generation before us has had contact, and all of that is in us to know. We are not fully conscious of it in this iteration because it has been pushed away from our ability to remember. We have been enslaved somewhat away from our knowledge and our abilities. We have been told that they don't exist. We've been told that we're crazy for being psychic. We've been told that we're supernatural is not natural. They've pretty much turned us into agreeable followers and not doers on our own.
Yeah, but
Behind that,
governments have. Yeah.
yes, behind that, your consciousness, which is who you really are, and can express itself to your physical mind, is not able to alleviate your fear because it can't, your physical mind can't hear it thinking all the time. That's why their message, we need you to wake up. We need you to know who you really are. We need you to know how to hear the truth and hear and understand what's really going on. Our education system's everything. Now imagine a human being right now who's had no memory of it and has been expressly told this is wrong thinking, suddenly wake up and they have an ET in the room with them. They will mentally start going into shock. That's my experience, seeing it happen in real time. They shut down. They mentally wall themselves in pure fear until we get them on board and we show them that they've done this before. And we show them that there's nothing to fear. We show them what the reasons are why they're there and what's really going on. It's still up to them whether they want to consciously remember that memory or treat it as if it's a dream. We OBE every night when we're asleep. Everybody does. That's a natural talent of all humanity. But your dreams are dreamlike to you and you don't remember the OBEs as if it's really happening to you, and you shroud it. Your physical mind can't comprehend it, so it shrouds it in mystery and exotic things when it's not true. We self-delude really easily, and a lot of people choose to stay in that delusional paradigm. Really want to come to the conscious control of it, because if they do, it alters their life in a drastic, unprecedented way. It singles them out. It puts them at odds with humanity, their families, their friends, everything. It makes their life hard to live. And ET is very aware of this and will allow them to keep it in the dream state in their mind. They choose that. They don't hypnotize us. We do it to ourselves. If you want to know what split personalities are, this is a real good example of it. We dream personality walk away from the truth of what's actually happening. I see this as somewhat okay, but I mostly see it as a waste of our time and ET's. It makes me a little upset, a little bit sad for everybody, because the truth is way better than the fiction or the dream. The truth of who they are and who we are to them, with them, is way more expansive and more productive to us as a people than anything else. And
so that's
the reason,
thing behind missing time then, is because it's a
yes,
sort of an agreement between both parties involved.
correct, exactly. It's a cooperative effort to give you relief from that which is too much for you to handle right now. A lot of people choose to be woken up by, it's sort of like a trigger. You know, a hypnotist will tell you this is going to happen in the future. When it does, this memory is going to come back to you. You can be allowed to do that. You can allow a situation to wake you up suddenly. And a lot of people are under that trigger because we have things coming at us, and everybody pretty much knows it under their skin. Most people are walking the streets today knowing that we're facing something immense. They don't know why they know it, but they do. And when a few things start to happen, they're going to wake up. It's going to be a big deal.
So I've come to realize that fear is the real problem behind people interpreting this as a negative, involuntary experience. Right. And that's the real trigger for missing time. Wow, it's ultimately always coming down to simple fear. Because most of the people I've talked to who've had repeated onboard experiences at some point realize, okay, I did, in fact, agree to this. This is for my benefit.
Right.
And they start to remember, and they start to get all the good stuff.
Right. I've actually had people that I've watched on board who decide at that point, after multiple contacts, decide, okay, this is it. I'm going to start to remember now. And how do we do this? How am I going to do this safely? How am I going to mentally take this? and they walk them through it, and they begin that process of giving them the ability or helping them. That's why they suddenly think that they're psychic and that ET did it. No, they did not. You're psychic on your own. You don't need any help doing that, but all the blocks that are there for you not to be psychic are suddenly going to start being removed from you. In other words, but you're doing it to yourself. No hypnotist has any control like that over you, and neither does ET. We control ourselves. We're autonomous beings, and we decide how we're going to wake up. That's how that process goes.
Contact experience sort of provides one an opportunity or facilitates you.
Facilitates, exactly. They give you the opportunity, you take it, and then they offer you support. That's what they do.
All right. Yeah, this is what I love about your experiences, is because you've watched this happen so many times. You're there when people are being taken on board. This is one of the things you do with them.
Yes.
So this is another thing I want to bring up is people say, why are they taking us on board? And I hear people, saying without any real evidence, this is medical experimentation. And I don't have evidence of that. I do think that often the purpose is to be healed. I think there's multiple reasons people are taken on board, but I thought it would be interesting if we could go over some of the main purposes behind the onboard experience.
When the reason that you're contacted and brought on board a craft is to check up on you. They want to know how you are doing. They want to categorize the state of your health, and they monitor it. A lot of people are monitored, and they see how well you're doing now as opposed to then. They have a baseline on everybody. The number one reason is that we're taking heavy loads of gamma radiation. Our DNA is being attacked, and that is causing us all kinds of physical and mental ailments. And they're trying to hold up the human genome and help us survive what's coming. And for us to be totally magnetically erased before it even occurs is a bad thing. So they're helping us. That's the number one reason. They understand that we have karmic reasons for being here, that each life is important, and that life has the right or the purpose of learning what it needs to learn. So they don't go past that. But if you have something that they can take care of right now that will help you keep your purpose going in the way that it's meant to go, they do heal. And they have always endeavored to do so. Some people realize they're being healed, some people don't. Some people are totally aware of it. It just depends on your circumstances with them.
All right. Yeah, that's the conclusion I've come to. The onboard experience, in a nutshell, is for healing, it's for guiding, it's for teaching, it's for informing, it's for waking people up to themselves, their own abilities, their own autonomy, their immortality, this sort of thing. So, yeah, it's very nice to hear you say that. And what I'd like to do, actually, is provide specific examples so people can see this in action. And I've got a few examples here that we did cover in the book, which will be really fun, and because some of these are so poignant. I mean, it just brought tears to my eyes when you talked about some of these experiences you've had with people. But before we get to that, one other thing is, how people react when they're taken on board. You've seen it all. People reacting in utter fear, terror, vomiting, soiling themselves, attacking the ETs, where some are joyful and celebrate. And it would be interesting, I think, if you could talk about how people react along, this bell curve, with some kids being very happy, other people being fearful, other people, how do people react when they are pulled on board?
It does run the gamut. In other words, from 0 to 1,000. Children are the least likely to freak out. And I say that it's not a generalization. 99.999% of the time, children go, "Hey, this is cool." Who are you? They're loving little creatures, and they're so wide open. Every blue moon, I will see one come on board who's newly coming on board first time. and they go solidly still. They freeze and they won't move, and they just look around. Their eyes are moving, but they're not doing anything until you make physical and emotional contact with them. And when they realize that you're not there to hurt them, that's when they loosen up. ET does prefer to bring mommies on board with the children if that's happening, because mommies are the barometer of their emotional expression. They follow her, or daddy, even in some instances, or grandpa or grandma. So they are brought with them. If mommy's acting badly, baby's going to act badly. So mommy's been a repeater, so she's not going to go crazy, and the kid's going to go, hey, okay. And it's better than the human doctor. I've seen this both ways. In my own instance, as a child, I had mama, and mama helped me to understand what was going on. And I was like, but I've seen others come forward. Yeah.
Your main liaison.
Right. I had that advantage. Yes. They do like to bring mommies and daddies on board. Adults, it just depends. Men and women who are married or together or partners or whatever, or anybody who's a partner for that matter, are generally separated. They brought on different times. Sometimes they're together, but most of the time it's one or the other. Take your pick. And that's so that they're isolated from the reaction of the other one, because adults can react even worse than children sometimes. And that's what they're looking not to have happen on board. They're the big ones, and they can do the most damage to the ETs, who are fragile as all get out, the little AIs. You can hurt them. The taller grays are capable of getting away from you rapidly. In other words, you can't really hurt one. They have the ability to suspend you. They can levitate you. I mean, they can do a lot of things to stop your physical advances on them. Children, they won't do that to, though. That is not something, they go nowhere near that at all. I have seen some older people react in fear, but most of the time they're like, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I get that a lot. I knew you were there. And it's like, whoa, wow. Okay, yeah, you did. Some older people actually remember a lifetime of experience. All at one time they go, I have these dreams. They're real, aren't they? And we're like, yep, they're dreams. They're real. Some of them don't want to leave. I get that a lot lately. I'm not going back. And that tells me a lot about the state of this planet right now. A lot of people, when they go, they're like, not leaving. And it's hard to tell them, you have to. This is your life. We're only helping you out because you need help, but you got to go back. You got to finish this.
Well, you said something once which really resonated with me, because I've heard before people who have these experiences talk about how they live two separate lives to a certain extent.
Yes.
So I can only imagine how it must be to, have that culture shock of finding yourself on board, and like, wow.
Yeah, I'm more of it's amazing. When I'm with them, that's my life. And when I'm here, I feel more like a Gulliver in Gulliver's Travelers. I'm seeing things that I don't quite understand sometimes. It's a little difficult for me, but I'm here because I'm a human being, and these are experiences that I'm having, and I have to fully participate in them, enjoying. It makes it difficult because sometimes I don't want to. I back up and go, and not. I'll hide.
So they don't call it abductions, and they call it gathering the children. They don't call this, the ETs from their perspective. They don't call the experience an abduction.
No, we're gathering the children. That's how they think about it. It's their concept. We are their children. Literally, we are their children, all of us. And when we go out on, you would call it a mission. It's not a mission. We're going out. It's not even an excursion. They have a word for it, and it literally comes out to be, we're gathering the children. It's time. We got to go get them. It's time to check up. That's how they think about us. Strangely, and it doesn't matter who you are, good, bad, or indifferent, they're going to gather their children, and you are. And that's what happens. And everybody's given the same opportunity. Nobody's discounted. It is all of us. Now, you can do, every now and then, somebody will impress them to the point that they'll go, okay, we're going to leave you alone now. Okay, have it your way and go right ahead. And they will. They won't bother you anymore. But you have to really convince them of that. And some do. but we're their children. They're not going to leave us alone. Existence to them is everything. We don't come here for any other reason other than to advance, to learn, to explore. We're all together in source. We all know each other in source. And how could you act any differently here? That's how they feel about it. And the fact that most everybody on this particular planet at this particular time are having a hard time with this doesn't matter to them. They still love us and they still want to help us. Period.
Yeah, well, I think that's, I mean, it's obvious to me, having talked to so many people, and the fact that it's so consistent that when they do appear to someone and say, have no fear, don't be afraid, no harm will come to you,
Right.
You will not be harmed. This is what they always tell people. And so I think that's an important point, because certainly that's not what a criminal says or a kidnapper. And most of the people I've talked to come to that conclusion.
Right.
And
in essence, an abduction is with violence, because people don't want to be abducted and they're fighting it the whole way. If you're going to fight it, if you're going to say, no, I don't want to go, they won't even take you. You stay home. And if you make that decision, that's your decision. They won't take you. You go willingly with them. When they show up to pick you up, even me, I mean, when I saw that beam of light, at first I had a negative reaction to it, okay? I tried to jump and hide. But when I realized what was really going on and I was seeing what was happening, I realized, okay, this is not too bad. I threw up because I was so emotional about it. I puked, okay? I had a visceral reaction to it, but I never had a fearful one. In other words, I wasn't, oh no, you're bad people, I want to get in. No, that's not what it was. I was trying to evaluate my situation, and this was totally cool. And I was like, I have to realize that this is real. That's what was going through my mind. This is really real, And I finally came to it. I finally went, okay, I'm good with this. And I meant to remember at that point. There was no way you were going to stop me. It was too awesome a situation. It was the best one I could possibly be in. And I'm hoping that everybody gets that. I'm hoping that everybody wants to do the work to remember who they are, to remember that they have abilities and to use them and to wake up to it. And that's my fondest, deepest hope and wish. ETs as well.
That's why I wanted to do this episode. I just recently interviewed a man who had an onboard experience at age 14 with his mom. They were on board together. She was reacting quite violently, cursing at the ETs, like, don't you hurt my son.
Wow. Yeah.
They actually, he's come to the conclusion now that they were healing him a problem with his stomach. And though he was laying there in sheer terror, at the same time, they're saying, what's wrong, child? You're not going to be harmed. We're almost done. And comforted him. And he realized, oh, they're not here to hurt me. And yeah, it's just really interesting to me that people go through that process of trying to get through their fear, because fear will absolutely distort your perception of what's going on.
Exactly. Yes.
All right, so let's talk about some of these really cool specific incidents where this is all illustrated, I think. And one we did talk about in the book, which was really poignant and touching, was about a lady who was in a house fire and was badly burned, and they pulled her on board. Do you remember that one?
Yes. She was somebody that we visited probably about every 8 months. And she was living rurally out in the Midwest. And when we came in, we realized that our house had been burning. And nobody knew it. Nobody saw the fire. Nobody saw the smoke for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe it was smoldering rain around it. That much I don't remember the topography. All I know is there was a burned house in front of us. And she was badly burned. And she was going to die. And we brought her up. And the decision was made that she was savable and we were going to do it. And she was taken to be saved. I wasn't able to track her through that entire process because I had other things that were going on. I fly the craft. Later in that time period that I was with them, I kept asking, how is she? Is she alive? Is she okay? Is she okay? And they would say, she's coming. It was about a month and a half where I was given the word that she was up, she was awake, and she was able to communicate again. And I wanted to see her. I had to see her. And when I did, I expected to see scars, bad scars. I'm a nurse. I know what it looks like when you've been burned. And she looked good. She did a beautiful job. And she was just a wonderful human being. And she remembered what happened. She was a smoker. And I guess she fell asleep with a cigarette and it burned her and the room. And I don't know how she survived that. I don't know why the whole house caught as fast as it did. I just know that she somehow survived it. She was on a ground floor. She was in an outside room, a corner room. And that the air coming in didn't feed the fire to her. It fed the fire to the rest of the house quickly. It gave her more oxygen that way. I think that's how she survived it.
Wow.
They were counseling her because they could not take her back. Under these circumstances, it was believed that she burned to ashes with the house. And she was being counseled because she had to come to the fact that she was not going back. And I worried for her that it would be too hard for her to accept. And when I saw her, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, because she not only took it really, really well, she was kind of happy because she realized that what she went through bought her another life and bought her a chance to go on, that she should have died. She would have died, because if we hadn't shown up, she would have died. She was in the process of going. She was very happy about it, and she was trying to figure out where she wanted to go. And she was really surprised to see me, because I'm human, and I'm a hybrid, but I'm look at me, I'm human. And we had a good old time together. We talked and talked and talked, and I kept coming to see her because it was a little while before any decisions were made about where she was going to go. When I saw her the last, when the decisions were made, what was going to happen for her, I got to sit with her for 5 minutes, and we hugged, and she said, "Thank you." She said, "Your eyes saw me first," and I did. I saw her first. And she said, "I walked because of you." And I was shocked. And I said, "You don't have to be grateful to me. Your will to live outshined anything else. You would not be here if it were not for your will to survive what you went through." And I barely understood what I was saying when I said it. I know it now, but it's true. Okay. And that's the most poignant thing about this whole thing, is she saved herself. She had a will to live. She had a will to go through what she needed to go through. She trusted them to save her, and they did. And she trusted them to help her move on with her existence and to go somewhere where she could carry that out. And I've never forgotten it my entire life. It is always with me, always will be with me.
Wow.
Really cool.
It's very touching. It's like, so that reminds me of, another case that you talked about, because most people, don't go with them, but though this does happen, right? And
Yes. Yes.
About them picking up homeless people at times, who are, basically not going to survive because this planet and is not caring for them. So can you talk a little bit about a case like that or two?
People are an interesting solution to life. When you've been dealt blow after blow after blow and had so much taken away from you, you pretty much sit on the ground and wait to go. You still have to eat, you still have to sleep, you still have to do the things that you need to do to be alive while you're here. But they pretty much bury themselves in ashes. I think Job describes this the best. Sackcloth and ashes. I've had it all taken care away from me, and I'm just sitting here waiting to go. I'm waiting on the Lord, They see this happening, and it's a travesty in their minds because nobody around them cares enough about them, or they think they do, but they don't, to pick them up and dust them off and give them a new start, to give them something to start with. Sometimes they're so far gone, they'll never do it. Some do. ET can hear you think. They know your heart. They know what's going on with you mentally. And they will pick one up. Well, they pick all of them up. They're always checking on everybody, but every now and then one will come up that wants a bath, that wants to sit and talk, that doesn't have any regrets and have no recriminations. They don't hate anybody. They love everybody despite their problems. And they really, really are interested in everything that's going on. And that's the key. They look for that. Your humanity hasn't been lost in your condition. It's still with you. And they will give you opportunities at that point, and they will tell you, we can give you something better than this. You want to go. And they'll work with you till you can achieve it with them. And there's a place for you to go on standby to see if you can fulfill what they're hoping you're going to fulfill so you can go. And yes, some homeless people just go poof, they disappear to us, and nobody knows what happened to them. Well, ET's taken them because they wanted to go with them. They gave them opportunity.
Wow.
You know?
Imagine. Oh, I do have other cases of people who are like involved in disasters and wouldn't or couldn't be missed because, like, the explosion of a volcano, the Nevado del Ruiz volcano, buried some 21,000 people under feet of mud. Contactee I talked to was involved in a rescue of some of these people. Yeah, they're not being brought back. And homeless people aren't missed. They're all rejected anyway, so.
There have been a few disasters on this planet where that's occurred in this iteration, yes. They've always done that. It's always been you given the choice. You want to go? Let's go. Don't want to stay here? Come with us. And a lot of people will say yes. Some of those people actually said no. I guarantee you that whoever was helping them go up ship saw one or two walk away from it and go, that has happened. But most of them went, and we're talking 20, 30,000 people at a time in those situations. Everybody was working that night. I mean, they had people helping them. It was such a big deal to get them off with very little notice. And okay.
You hear about this with, occasional plane crashes or ships sinking. They never find some of the people. And I think now we know why.
Yes.
So I'd like to talk about a few more healing cases as well. There was one case that we did cover very briefly in the book. I really just mentioned one sentence of it. So I was wondering about this one where I guess you guys landed alongside a roadway and a man driving by happened to see you and foolishly, and this is how a lot of the so-called UFO injuries occur, runs up to a very hot, essentially radioactive craft. This is what's so interesting about the injuries is if you look at them, you categorize them, most of them look like accidents, whereas the healings are clearly intentional. And this guy, from what I remember you telling me, again, it's just one sentence in the book, saw the craft and ran up to it and got burned.
Yes. And he didn't even have to touch it. He was burned before he could put his hands on us. He got out. He ran up the road toward the craft we had just landed, and it was a very fast, very quick landing. When we come out of atmosphere, we're at least 4,000 degrees. No kidding. When you go from plasma onto the ground, it's hot. Think about the space shuttle. When it comes down and it lands, nobody can go near that thing for hours and hours. It's hot. Okay. We're really hot. And we're radioactive on top of it. And he ran up and he leaned back like this. I saw him going and I went, oh no, he's too close. And he kept physically going forward and he just laid flat down on his back. He was instantly irradiated. Oh. It burned him. And you don't leave that alone. We picked him up. We had to. He was going to die. And they took him in an emergency, and it was till he didn't stay until we got him to a mothercraft as fast as we could because he was in a lot of trouble. He needed a lot of help. And he was brought back after he was healed, and he was put back just before we were there. And
timeline speaking.
Yeah. Before he was there, before we were there. It's a very close call. And he woke up to seeing us leaving. So he saw something, and then he saw us leaving, and that in his mind, that's what he remembers. And yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting because I've talked to people who like see the craft there, and next thing they know, it's leaving.
Yes. Yep.
So yeah, that's very, very interesting. And a good cautionary bit of wisdom.
Don't approach a craft. You don't know if it just landed or not, ever. Just rule of thumb, no touching craft, period, ever, ever. Don't get within 150 feet, 200 feet of it until you know for sure that thing is cool and somebody's opened a port and they're going, hey, how you doing? Don't, no, it's dangerous. It will kill you.
Yeah. Another thing I covered in one of my Not From Here books was people who've shot at UFOs, or for that matter, ETs,
Yeah.
Which usually doesn't have much of a reaction other than it pinging off the craft, and off the craft will go.
Right.
This is where they did actually beam the person back. But you had this experience once.
We have a graviton wave shield around us, okay? What gives us anti-grav is like a shield, okay? We're in it. It protects us from everything, including incoming. And he had a gun. He was standing there staring at us, watched us come down, and I'm thinking, don't, just don't. You know, we're 500 feet away from him,
Where,
500, 600 feet. We didn't even land yet.
I mean, this was in the US.
And he does this. He's got his gun, you know, most hunters hold their guns, you know, at their sides like this. And he's got his hand down around the trigger, you know, holding it. And he literally did this. He took his other hand. I don't know if you can see me or not. He slid it forward and went and shot at us. And I'm thinking, please let it ricochet away. No, it went straight into his thigh. It came off the shield and right back into him. This is bad because it got radioactive the second it hit the shield, and then it went into his thigh. And he went straight to his ass. He sat down with the gun. He tried to lift the gun again and then thought better of it. And that's when we took him out and we got him out of there as fast as we could. We left the gun on the ground and we took him away and fixed his leg and put him back. Yeah.
And was he left with any memory of what happened?
Yes. We didn't let him forget that one. It's like a dream to him. He was talked to about it when he was there. He was very belligerent at first. What do you think I was going to do? I was going to shoot at you. You're crazy, you know. And took a while to convince him that's not a good idea. Very bad idea. Hell, the armies of this planet can't hit one and kill it. They like to make you think that they can shoot you down, and it's not true. That you cannot hurt them. The only reason that they crash is because they've lost the magnetic resonant line that they're surfing, you know, skiffing, and yeah, they'll go down. And it's a pilot's not paying attention and or totally loses the line and they go down. It's an unpleasant experience. Once in a blue moon, something bad will happen on a craft. Like anything, nothing is 100% or fail safe, and one will crash because of that. But that's way, you know, 0.00000001, you know. That not that often. It's mostly the magnetism of this planet screwed up and they go down. So yeah.
So those are some of the healings and stuff. There's a couple of other incidents that we did mention in the book, which I thought were so touching, and because they do come down and counsel people who are in bad situations. And you talked about one time where a gentleman was on death row. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that incident or that type of incident.
Everybody is capable of making great mistakes in their lives. Everybody is capable of cracking or breaking down. And a lot of that goes on these days because we're being messed with, our brains are being messed with, you know, magnetically, and DNA has a lot of reason to do with that. This man's family was known to them. He was a contactee all his life. He was somebody that they cared about greatly. They respected him and his life. And they thought that it would be important for him to at least have somebody to confess to and maybe try to work through what happened to him. We don't always give people those opportunities. You know, we like to think we do, but we don't. And give him a forum in which he could let it all hang out and understand what he was facing and why. And they did. They took him up and they counseled him through what was about to happen to him. They couldn't stop it, but they gave him the opportunity to be stock sure that he would not only move on through the universe.
All right, sorry about that. We had a brief interruption with the internet, but we're back now. So sorry about that, Dolly. But as you were talking about the death row inmate who was facing the last of his life, and the ETs brought him on board and were counseling him, giving him the opportunity to talk about what he was facing, the end of his life and all of that. So you pretty much got through most of it, I think, but if you had anything else you wanted to say about it.
They gave him a connection to them to the end of his physical life. In other words, he didn't go alone. They were with him and they were waiting for him on the other side. They have that ability to do that. They can OB as well as we can. And they gave him that reassurance. They felt like after counseling with him and understanding that he knew why he did what he did and he understood it, that they would not let him alone. He was alone before that and they did not want him to be. It's a great lesson in that.
These are such wonderful examples, which is why I think it's important that people know that this is what is really going on when people are being taken on board. And one really good final example I'd like to bring up, which again I found so touching. You talked about this doctor who had spent their whole life in service of humanity, and I believe was over 100 when they brought him on board as sort of a celebration of his life and the service he had given to humanity. So many people who are taken on board are doing good work for humanity. I see a lot of people who are doctors, nurses like yourself, social workers, people working for animals, animal rights, preservation of our environment, social workers, musicians, people, good people who are working hard. This is who the ETs are helping, because these are the people who are helping others. And that's true about this gentleman. So I wonder if you could talk about what happened when he was brought on board.
I was a much younger woman than I am now. I was in my early 30s, and he was 104 years old when I met him, when he came up. And this was a special trip, and I was warned that he would be the only one that day. And I was not prepared to hear his whole story. And when I did, I was unbelievably driven to my knees emotionally over this. He lived his life out as a man. 104 years, my senior. I was only 32 or 33 when I met him. So 70 years before that, he had no way of being a doctor as a female. Could not, would not. He was intelligent. He was able to make all the grades, and he lived his life as a male for this reason. And nobody on this planet knew that he wasn't a male. He worked very hard at it. Those few that did kept a secret because of who he was. He never married. He never had children. He gave of himself. He never tried to be famous or an expert at anything. He just cared about people. And he was a good doctor. E.T. has known about him his whole life and honored him and wanted him to know that they wanted to honor him. They were honoring his good work, his service to humanity. I mean, think about it. All of us should feel this way about humanity, all of us. They gave him the greatest gift you can give. They gave of their minds. They opened up to him, and they let him see what he was going to go to, because there was no way they were going to lose him one way or the other. They were going to help him have the decision where he wanted to go. By the time he got to them and they showed him these things, his decision was that he wanted to move on, that he wanted to go ahead to the next step in his evolution. He knew he had a chance to live again somewhere else, but he had no family to hold him or hold his interest here in any way. And so they promised they would be with him and they would hold him true and they would walk him through the process as well, like the man in death row. And they celebrated his life while he was on board. He was taken to a few places. He was shown what he wanted to see. He was given their hearts, everything.
Wow, so touching. Well, I think this is a good place to end it, because I know you have more examples of people who've been taught, guided, healed, rescued. Even you yourself have had some healings and amazing incidents, but I think we can save that perhaps for another time. That was covered in the book, but none of these incidents that we've talked about were covered to the detail I think we've covered here today.
Yes.
So I really want to thank you for sharing these amazing experiences. One thing I have heard from many contactees is the same message. And when you brought it up, I'm like, wow, here it is again, which is they will tell people, you are us. We are you. We are all one. We come from the same place. And to hear you say that as well was like, wow. So I think this shows us, really what the purpose for onboard UFO encounters are. As I said, they're here to guide, help, heal, teach, wake people up.
Yes.
So if you'd like to give some, any closing statements or anything else you want to add to this subject of gathering the children, I think that would be awesome. And yeah, just a good way to wrap up this whole particular aspect of onboard UFO encounters.
The truth is that we've always been with them. We've always known them, and they've always known us. We've known every creature in the universe. Literally, we are all in source together, and we all come out together to live and to experience life and to learn and to make ourselves wise and to ascend upward as we should. We've been cut off here, and ET has been in a hard position here with this, and people want us to be helped by them, and that's all well good, and they do help us as much as they can, but we all have to be willing to meet them at least more than halfway. It is our autonomy, it is our right to do that which we need to do for ourselves. You can't be anything unless you yourself are that you be that yourself. You learn it yourself. You wear everything you know, everything. Please remember that. Please remember that everybody is doing the same thing you're doing, and that we should help one another. We should love our brothers. We should love them unequivocally. Every great master who's ever been on this planet and said anything to any of us about anything have all said the same thing. Love one another. Love is freedom. Love is the way. That's what I have to say.
Well, that's perfect. Yeah. Thanks so much, Dolly.
You're welcome.
It's such a joy always to talk to you and present your information and your experiences in this kind of format. And I know people love it because these episodes always do really well. For those who are listening, this is part 5 of the series. And you'd like to, probably be a good idea if you haven't checked out the other 4 to check those out, because I think they'll help make more sense of what we're talking about here today. So thanks very much, Dolly. I truly appreciate it. And I'd like to do some more in the future, because I know you have a lot more to share. And one of these days, I really want to do a live Q&A because people are asking.
That would be fun. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Awesome. All right. Well, I guess bye for now. And thanks very much, Dolly.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of UFOs and the Paranormal. Again, this is part 5 of my interviews with Dolly Safran. Her experiences are covered in my book, Symmetry, A True UFO Adventure. And I think I'm going to have to write another book with you, Dolly.
Okay.
Honestly, I keep hearing about experiences that we haven't even touched on.
Yep.
And want to do several more interviews. So thanks, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed it. Keep asking questions. Keep searching for the truth. And leave fear behind. And most importantly, keep having fun. Bye, everyone.